Cleveland just dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming. The Browns' front office walked into the building, looked at their quarterback room, and decided to blow the whole thing up. Kenny Pickett is gone. The depth chart is in chaos. And right in the middle of all this madness stands one name that everybody keeps whispering about: Shedeur Sanders, the rookie quarterback who walked into training camp with a massive target on his back and somehow turned that pressure into pure fuel. While everybody was busy debating whether he belonged in the NFL, Sanders was quietly putting together performances that made coaches stop and pay attention. The analysts are losing their minds. The fan base is split right down the middle. Trade rumors are flying in every direction. And the front office is sitting on a decision that could define this franchise for the next decade. This isn't just another quarterback competition. This is a full-blown war for the future of Cleveland football. The stakes have never been higher. The pressure has never been more intense. And what happens next could shock everyone who's been sleeping on what's really going down inside that building. The moment Cleveland cut Kenny Pickett loose, everything inside that organization shifted. This wasn't some routine roster move that happens every preseason. This was a statement. The front office looked at their quarterback situation and decided they were done playing it safe. They wanted to send a message to everyone watching, and that message came through loud and clear. We're not afraid to make tough decisions. We're not afraid to shake things up. And we're definitely not afraid to put our chips on the table when we believe in something. The ripple effects started immediately. Players in that locker room felt the energy change overnight. When a front office makes a move that aggressive, everybody pays attention. Suddenly, positions that seemed locked down don't feel so secure anymore. Roles that appeared set in stone start looking a lot more flexible. The whole dynamic inside that building transformed in ways that most people outside the organization probably don't fully understand. Kenny Pickett wasn't just some random guy on the roster. He had experience. He had starting experience in this league. He'd taken snaps that mattered in real NFL games. Cutting him meant Cleveland was willing to sacrifice that experience for something else. They were willing to trade proven commodity for potential. They were betting on upside over safety. And that kind of decision tells you everything you need to know about where this front office's head is at right now. The quarterback room suddenly felt a whole lot smaller. Before Pickett got released, there was a clear hierarchy in place. Everybody knew their role. Everybody understood where they stood. The competition existed, but it existed within defined boundaries. Those boundaries just got obliterated. Now every single rep matters more than it did before. Every throw carries extra weight. Every decision a quarterback makes during practice gets analyzed with fresh eyes. Dillon Gabriel felt that pressure immediately. One day he's competing for a spot with multiple players ahead of him on the depth chart. The next day, the path to QB2 is suddenly wide open. That sounds like good news on the surface, but it also means the spotlight just got a whole lot brighter. There's nowhere to hide anymore. Every mistake gets magnified. Every good play needs to be followed by another good play. The margin for error just shrunk dramatically. And then there's Shedeur Sanders. The rookie walked into this situation knowing he had something to prove. He came into the NFL with all the hype, all the attention, all the expectations that come with being a highly touted prospect. Critics were ready to tear him apart at the first sign of weakness. Supporters were ready to crown him before he even took a snap. Sanders had to block out all that noise and focus on one thing only: getting better every single day. The Pickett release changed his trajectory in ways that might not be obvious at first glance. Suddenly, that QB2 spot isn't some distant goal. It's right there. It's within reach. A few strong performances, a few moments where he shows he can handle the pressure, and everything changes. The coaching staff is watching closer than ever. The front office is evaluating every single thing he does. And Sanders knows this is his moment to prove he belongs. What makes this situation even more fascinating is the timing. Cleveland made this move right before critical preseason games. They didn't wait until the final roster cuts. They didn't drag things out and let uncertainty linger. They ripped the Band-Aid off and forced everybody to adjust on the fly. That kind of aggressive decision-making suggests the front office already knows what direction they want to go. They're just waiting for confirmation. The message to the rest of the league was equally powerful. Teams around the NFL took notice when Cleveland released Pickett. Suddenly, trade conversations started heating up. Front offices began making calls about available quarterbacks. The Browns showed they're willing to move pieces when they believe in a certain vision. And that willingness to act decisively changes how other teams approach negotiations with Cleveland. Inside the building, coaches had to recalibrate their entire approach to quarterback development. Practice reps got redistributed. Meeting time got reorganized. The focus shifted toward figuring out who can actually handle the pressure when regular season games start. Kevin Stefanski and his staff had to look at their quarterbacks with completely fresh perspective. Previous evaluations needed updating. New opportunities demanded new assessments. The veteran players on the roster noticed everything. When you've been in the league for a while, you develop a sense for organizational momentum. You can feel when the energy shifts. You know when the front office is making moves with long-term vision versus short-term desperation. The Pickett release felt like the former. It felt like Cleveland was building toward something specific, and that something appears to center around giving younger quarterbacks every opportunity to prove themselves. This roster shakeup wasn't just about removing one player. It was about creating space for something new to emerge. Cleveland is clearly positioning themselves to make a definitive choice about their quarterback future. The competition is real now. The stakes are elevated, and what happens over the next few weeks could determine the direction of this franchise for years to come. While everybody was busy talking about what Cleveland should do at quarterback, Shedeur Sanders was in the building putting in work that spoke louder than any analyst take. The rookie showed up to training camp with something to prove, and he's been proving it every single day since. His rise through the depth chart hasn't been loud or flashy. It's been methodical, calculated, the kind of steady climb that coaches notice even when the cameras aren't rolling. From day one, Sanders displayed a level of composure that surprised people inside the organization. Rookies typically go through an adjustment period. The speed of the NFL overwhelms them initially. The complexity of professional playbooks takes time to absorb. The pressure of competing against grown men who have been doing this for years can shake even the most confident young player. Sanders handled all of it differently than expected. He walked into quarterback meetings asking the right questions, not basic stuff that showed he hadn't studied. Sharp questions that revealed he was already thinking 2 steps ahead. Veterans in the room took notice. Coaches started paying closer attention to how he processed information. The mental side of his game appeared far more advanced than his experience level suggested. On the practice field, Sanders started stacking good days on top of each other. Consistency became his calling card. While other quarterbacks had ups and downs throughout camp, Sanders maintained a steady level of performance that created separation. He wasn't trying to make highlight reel throws every snap. He was focused on executing the offense at a high level and letting the results speak for themselves. His accuracy numbers during training camp sessions caught everybody's attention. When you start completing passes at rates that match or exceed veterans who have been running these plays for years, people take notice. Sanders was threading throws into tight windows. He was hitting receivers in stride on timing routes. He was making the routine plays look easy while occasionally flashing the arm talent that made him a coveted prospect. The composure under pressure might be the most impressive part of his development. During competitive drills when the defense is bringing heat, some quarterbacks panic. Their footwork gets sloppy. Their decision-making speeds up in bad ways. They force throws they shouldn't attempt. Sanders stayed calm in those moments. His internal clock seemed perfectly calibrated to NFL timing. He knew when to get rid of the ball. He knew when he had time to let routes develop. That feel for pressure typically takes years to develop. Stephen A. Smith dropped some knowledge that got people talking. He revealed that Sanders had actually moved ahead of Dillon Gabriel on internal evaluation boards before the most recent preseason game. That's significant information. Teams don't adjust their internal rankings based on hype or potential. Those evaluations reflect what coaches are seeing during actual practice sessions. For Sanders to climb past Gabriel on those boards means he's been outperforming in situations the public doesn't get to witness. Smith emphasized the intangibles that set Sanders apart. The way he communicates with teammates between plays, the command he shows when calling plays at the line, the body language he displays when things go wrong versus when things go right. All of these subtle elements factor into how coaching staffs evaluate quarterbacks. You can't fake leadership. You either have that presence or you don't. Sanders apparently has it in abundance. The huddle is where Sanders really shines according to people inside the building. Young quarterbacks often defer to veterans in the huddle. They speak softly. They hesitate when making calls. They look for reassurance from older players before committing to decisions. Sanders doesn't operate that way. He takes command immediately. His voice carries confidence. Teammates respond to that energy because it makes them believe the guy calling plays actually knows what he's doing. His preparation routines have become legendary among the quarterback group. Sanders arrives early. He stays late. He's constantly watching film and asking coaches for extra work. That dedication isn't performative either. He's genuinely obsessed with improving every aspect of his game. When coaches see that level of commitment from a rookie, it builds trust. It makes them more willing to give that player opportunities in meaningful situations. The physical tools have always been there with Sanders. The arm strength to make every throw. The mobility to extend plays when the pocket breaks down. The size and frame that fit the prototype NFL teams look for at the position. What he's added during this camp is the mental processing to match those physical gifts. He's learning to see defenses before the snap. He's recognizing coverages faster. He's anticipating where defenders will be rather than reacting after they arrive. Perhaps most importantly, Sanders has handled the enormous expectations surrounding him with remarkable maturity. He came into Cleveland with arguably the biggest spotlight of any rookie quarterback in the league. His family name draws attention everywhere. Social media follows his every move. Critics were ready to declare him a bust at the first sign of struggle. Rather than letting all that external noise affect him, Sanders blocked it out and focused on what he could control. His own development, his own preparation, his own journey toward becoming the quarterback Cleveland needs him to be. The national media has been watching Cleveland's quarterback situation with intense focus, and something remarkable has emerged from all that analysis. Experts who rarely agree on anything have started reaching the same conclusion about Shedeur Sanders. These aren't hot take artists looking for clicks. We're talking about respected analysts who have spent decades evaluating NFL talent, and they're all pointing in the same direction. Mike Florio broke down the situation with the precision you'd expect from one of the most connected voices in football media. He didn't just focus on what's happening on the field. Florio examined the business side of this competition and revealed some fascinating insights. He noted that trading Dillon Gabriel could narrow the quarterback battle in Cleveland, and that narrowing carries both risks and rewards. Competition typically drives development. When you remove a layer of that competition, unexpected consequences can follow. But Florio also recognized something crucial about the opportunity this creates for Sanders. If Gabriel gets traded, Sanders inherits genuine reps with the starting units, real focus from the coaching staff, authentic developmental opportunities that accelerate growth. That's more than just a shift on the depth chart. That's setting up a young quarterback for success in ways that don't happen when rosters are crowded. The financial and marketing elements of this situation didn't escape Florio's analysis either. Shedeur Sanders brings an enormous fan base with him wherever he goes. The jersey sales are real. The social media engagement is off the charts. Clips of his throws go viral within minutes. Trading Sanders wouldn't just be a football decision. It would create a public relations situation that Cleveland definitely doesn't need while trying to build momentum. Rich Eisen jumped into the conversation with a prediction that raised eyebrows around the league. He suggested that if Dillon Gabriel gets traded and Sanders steps into the QB2 role, it's simply a matter of time before Sanders rises to QB1. That's a bold statement from someone who's been covering the NFL for as long as Eisen has. He's not prone to wild predictions or unfounded speculation. When he speaks with that level of certainty, people pay attention. Eisen's reasoning centers on the natural progression that occurs when talented young quarterbacks get meaningful opportunities. Once Sanders secures the backup position and starts getting work with the ones during practice, everything changes. He'd be involved in game planning at a deeper level. He'd get live preparation that simulates real game situations. Those reps build the foundation that allows quarterbacks to eventually seize starting roles. The momentum factor in the NFL is incredibly powerful. Eisen understands that better than most. When a young player starts building positive momentum, that energy becomes almost impossible to stop. Sanders appears to be riding exactly that kind of wave right now. Each good practice leads to more confidence. Each successful rep leads to greater trust from coaches. The trajectory is pointing straight up. Nick Wright didn't hold back when sharing his perspective on this quarterback battle. He made the case that Sanders should be considered the frontrunner for the starting job, not just the backup position. Wright acknowledged that this might sound aggressive given Sanders' rookie status, but he backed up his stance with specific observations about what separates truly special quarterbacks from the rest. Wright pointed directly at the training camp statistics that Sanders has accumulated: the accuracy numbers, the completion percentages, the decision-making grades under pressure. These aren't random metrics that analysts cherry-pick to support narratives. They're the fundamental measurements that predict quarterback success at the NFL level. Sanders has been excellent across the board in categories that matter most. What impressed Wright most was the consistency Sanders has displayed. Anybody can have one good practice or one impressive preseason drive. The greats stack good performances on top of each other until excellence becomes the expectation rather than the exception. Sanders has been doing exactly that throughout his time in Cleveland. The consistency suggests this isn't a hot streak. It's who he actually is as a player. Stephen A. Smith brought his characteristic energy to the analysis while also providing substantive insights that went beyond surface-level observations. He confirmed reports that Sanders had already moved ahead of Gabriel on internal evaluation boards before recent preseason action. That kind of insider information carries weight because it reveals what coaches are actually seeing behind closed doors. Smith focused heavily on the leadership qualities that separate Sanders from other young quarterbacks: the way he commands the huddle, the way teammates respond to his presence, the way he handles adversity when plays don't go as designed. These intangible elements often determine which quarterbacks succeed in the NFL more than pure physical talent. Smith suggested that Sanders possesses those qualities at an unusual level for someone his age. The convergence of analyst opinion around Sanders represents something significant. When Florio talks about the business case, Eisen discusses the career trajectory, Wright emphasizes the statistical evidence, and Smith highlights the leadership qualities. You're seeing the same conclusion reached through completely different analytical approaches. That kind of consensus doesn't happen often in NFL media. When it does, it usually signals that the people watching closest have recognized something genuine. The spotlight on Shedeur Sanders has created an uncomfortable reality for Dillon Gabriel. The young quarterback finds himself caught in a situation that's increasingly difficult to navigate. His talent is undeniable. His work ethic has never been questioned, but circumstances beyond his control are reshaping his future in ways that seemed unimaginable just weeks ago. Gabriel entered this competition believing he had a legitimate path to the backup position and potentially beyond. He prepared relentlessly during the offseason. He studied the playbook until he could run the offense in his sleep. He showed up to camp ready to compete at the highest level. Everything he could control, he controlled with professionalism and dedication. Yet here he stands, watching the narrative shift in a direction that doesn't favor him. The size debate has followed Gabriel throughout his career, and it's intensified now that he's competing at the NFL level. Standing at 5'11", he falls below the prototype height that most teams prefer for quarterbacks. This isn't about arbitrary preferences or outdated thinking. The concerns have legitimate football foundations that experienced evaluators take seriously. Mike Tannenbaum addressed this issue directly when analyzing the Cleveland quarterback situation. He acknowledged Gabriel's impressive preseason moments, the calmness under pressure, the quality decision-making, the ability to execute plays with precision. All of that is genuine and shouldn't be dismissed. However, Tannenbaum also noted that height presents real challenges in professional football that become more pronounced over time. Passing lanes at the NFL level tighten up quickly. Defensive linemen are taller and more athletic than anything quarterbacks faced in college. Windows for throws minimize in fractions of seconds. When you're working with a height disadvantage, those already small windows become even harder to hit. It's not a question of effort or skill. It's simply the physical reality of competing against the best athletes in the world. Tannenbaum suggested that these physical limitations could push Cleveland toward exploring trade options for Gabriel. When you have two quarterbacks with similar skill levels, teams typically favor the one with greater physical upside. That's not a knock on Gabriel's abilities. It's an acknowledgement of how front offices think when building rosters for long-term success. Nick Wright echoed these sentiments while adding his own perspective on the physical debate. He didn't question Gabriel's talent or his competitive spirit. Those qualities are evident to anyone watching him play. But Wright emphasized that certain physical attributes simply cannot be coached or developed. You can improve mechanics. You can refine footwork. You can enhance decision-making through experience. You cannot add inches to your frame. When Wright compared Gabriel directly to Sanders, the physical differences stood out immediately. Sanders offers a more robust, natural build. His throwing platform provides better leverage and visibility. His dimensions align more closely with what NFL teams traditionally seek at the quarterback position. That comparison doesn't mean Gabriel is inferior as a player. It means the projection for growth favors Sanders when teams evaluate long-term potential. The trade rumors surrounding Gabriel have intensified significantly over recent weeks. Several teams have reportedly expressed interest in acquiring his services. The Raiders appear on that list given their current quarterback situation, with injuries creating uncertainty. Dallas and Detroit have also been mentioned as potential destinations. Where there's smoke, there's usually fire, and the smoke around Gabriel's future in Cleveland is getting thicker by the day. From a business perspective, trading Gabriel makes considerable sense for Cleveland. He carries value that other teams are willing to pay for. If the Browns can acquire draft capital or roster depth by moving him while simultaneously maintaining their fan base's excitement around Sanders, that becomes a smart organizational decision. It's not about Gabriel failing. It's about maximizing assets while committing fully to a chosen direction. Gabriel himself has handled this uncertain situation with remarkable professionalism. He hasn't complained publicly about the shifting narrative. He hasn't made excuses or pointed fingers at anyone. He's continued to prepare and compete as if his position were completely secure. That kind of maturity deserves recognition, even if circumstances ultimately force Cleveland to make a difficult decision. The challenge Gabriel faces extends beyond physical measurements. He's competing against a player who arrived with unprecedented buzz and an established fan base. Sanders generates attention simply by existing. His social media following dwarfs most NFL veterans. Every throw he makes gets analyzed by millions of people. That kind of built-in support creates advantages that pure performance can't always overcome. Inside the Cleveland facility, coaches have been placed in an uncomfortable position. They've watched Gabriel work diligently and perform admirably in many situations. But they've also witnessed Sanders' development accelerate past expectations. When forced to choose between proven competence and explosive potential, front offices almost always lean toward potential. That's the brutal reality of professional sports. Gabriel's future likely won't be decided solely by what happens on the field during remaining preseason games. Front office calculations about roster composition, salary cap implications, and long-term quarterback planning will factor heavily into whatever decision Cleveland ultimately makes. He's become a piece in a larger puzzle that extends far beyond individual performance metrics. The uncertainty weighing on Gabriel represents one of the cruelest aspects of professional football. You can do everything right. You can maximize your preparation. You can perform at high levels when given opportunities, and still find yourself on the outside looking in because of factors you never had the power to change. Head coaches in the NFL choose their words carefully. Every public statement gets analyzed. Every comment about players carries weight throughout the organization and across the league. When Kevin Stefanski started changing how he talked about Shedeur Sanders, people inside and outside the building took immediate notice. This wasn't subtle. This was a deliberate shift that signaled something significant was happening. For weeks, Stefanski maintained a cautious approach when discussing his rookie quarterback. He praised Sanders in measured terms. He acknowledged potential while tempering expectations. He gave the standard coach speak that protects young players from unrealistic pressure while maintaining competition throughout the position group. That careful balance is exactly what you'd expect from an experienced head coach managing a complicated quarterback room. Then something changed. The tone became more direct. The praise became more specific. The commitment to Sanders' development became more pronounced. Stefanski started speaking about his rookie quarterback as if the question marks had transformed into exclamation points. That kind of rhetorical shift doesn't happen accidentally. It reflects a genuine change in how the coaching staff views the player. The timing of this shift proved particularly interesting. It coincided almost perfectly with Kenny Pickett's release from the roster. Once that move happened, Stefanski no longer needed to maintain diplomatic balance across multiple veteran options. The path forward became clearer, and his public comments reflected that clarity. He could finally say what he'd perhaps been thinking for weeks without worrying about disrupting locker room dynamics. Stefanski made it clear that the organization is fully committed to Sanders' development. Those words carry enormous weight coming from the head coach. When Stefanski speaks, the entire building listens. Players adjust their expectations. Position coaches recalibrate their approaches. Front office personnel factor those comments into their planning. A statement of commitment from the head coach becomes organizational policy almost immediately. The message reverberated throughout the locker room in ways that casual observers might not fully appreciate. Veteran players who'd been watching the quarterback competition closely suddenly received clarity about the direction their team was heading. Offensive linemen understood they'd be protecting Sanders regularly. Receivers recognized they'd be catching passes from the rookie more often. The entire offensive unit began mentally preparing for a future that centered around Sanders. What made Stefanski's shift even more notable was the contrast with his previous caution. Earlier in camp, he deflected questions about Sanders with standard coach speak about competition and evaluation. He'd avoided singling out any quarterback for particular praise. He'd maintained the appearance of an open competition where anything could happen. That approach served its purpose during the initial evaluation period. Once Stefanski moved past that careful positioning, his true assessment became evident. He sees something special in Sanders. The physical tools combine with mental processing in ways that excite the coaching staff. The leadership qualities match the arm talent. The preparation habits suggest a player who will continue improving throughout his career. All of these elements apparently convinced Stefanski that Sanders deserves the organization's full support. The defensive side of the ball felt the impact of Stefanski's statements as well. When the head coach publicly endorses a young quarterback, opposing defenses start preparing differently. They study that player's tendencies more carefully. They develop game plans specifically designed to challenge his weaknesses. The target on Sanders' back just grew significantly larger, but Stefanski apparently believes his quarterback can handle that increased attention. Stefanski's shift also sent a message to the rest of the NFL. Other teams considering trades or free agent moves now understand that Cleveland views Sanders as their future. That clarity affects how the Browns get treated in trade discussions. It impacts how opposing coaches prepare for games against Cleveland. It shapes the narrative around the franchise heading into the regular season. Inside the quarterback room, Stefanski's endorsement created a new dynamic. Sanders now carries the expectation of living up to his coach's public confidence. That pressure could crush some young players, but Sanders has shown throughout his career that he thrives when expectations rise. The bigger the moment, the better he tends to perform. Stefanski's faith might actually enhance Sanders' development rather than burden it. The coaching staff's approach to practice reps reflected Stefanski's new stance immediately. Sanders started receiving more work with the first-team offense. His involvement in game planning expanded. The conversations between Sanders and his position coach became more detailed and forward-looking. Everything about his day-to-day experience in the building changed once Stefanski made his position clear. Perhaps most importantly, Stefanski's commitment provided Sanders with organizational cover that rookies rarely receive. When mistakes happen during the learning process, the head coach has already signaled that patience will be applied. When growing pains occur during the regular season, Stefanski has positioned himself to weather those storms without immediately reconsidering his quarterback choice. That kind of support proves invaluable for young signal callers trying to find their footing. The reverberations from Stefanski's shift will continue throughout the season and beyond. He's attached his reputation to Sanders' development. If the rookie succeeds, Stefanski's decision to commit early will look brilliant. If Sanders struggles significantly, questions will arise about whether the coach moved too quickly. That's the risk coaches take when they publicly endorse young players before they've proven themselves at the highest level. Numbers don't lie in the NFL. Behind all the narratives and speculation exists cold, hard data that reveals the truth about player performance. When you examine Shedeur Sanders' statistical profile from training camp and preseason action, patterns emerge that support everything the analysts have been saying. These aren't cherry-picked metrics designed to manufacture a story. They're the fundamental measurements that predict quarterback success at the professional level. Accuracy sits at the foundation of everything for NFL quarterbacks. You can have the strongest arm in the league. You can make decisions faster than anyone else on the field. None of that matters if you can't put the ball where it needs to go. Sanders has been exceptional in this category throughout his time in Cleveland. His completion percentages during competitive drills consistently rank at the top of the quarterback group. What makes Sanders' accuracy numbers even more impressive is the context in which he's achieved them. These aren't soft completions against vanilla coverage during individual work. He's been threading throws into tight windows against NFL-caliber defensive backs who are fighting for roster spots themselves. The difficulty level of his completions matches or exceeds what he'll face during regular season games. That matters enormously when projecting future performance. Decision-making represents another area where Sanders has separated himself from the competition. Young quarterbacks typically struggle with processing speed when they first arrive in the NFL. The game moves faster than anything they experienced in college. Defensive coordinators disguise coverages more effectively. Pass rushers arrive quicker than expected. All of these factors should theoretically overwhelm a rookie. Sanders has looked remarkably comfortable instead. His turnover-worthy play rate during camp sessions remained extremely low despite the challenging situations coaches put him in. When you combine high accuracy with low turnover numbers, you get a quarterback who moves the offense efficiently without creating negative plays. That profile describes exactly what Cleveland needs from their signal caller. Efficient possession management that keeps the team in favorable down and distance situations. The composure stats might be the most telling of all. Coaches track how quarterbacks perform when pressure arrives. Some players see their numbers crater when defenders close in. Their accuracy drops. Their decision-making deteriorates. They make mistakes they'd never make from a clean pocket. Sanders' numbers actually improve slightly when pressure enters the equation. That's extraordinarily rare for any quarterback, let alone a rookie. Timing on throws represents another statistical category that reveals Sanders' advanced development. NFL offenses depend on precise timing between quarterbacks and receivers. A ball that arrives a half-second late gets broken up by a defender. A throw that comes early forces the receiver into an awkward catch attempt. Sanders has demonstrated exceptional timing throughout his route concepts. Receivers are catching passes in stride consistently. The progression reading numbers show Sanders working through his options exactly as the offense designs. He's not locking onto his first read and forcing throws into coverage. He's moving his eyes across the field systematically. When his primary option isn't available, he finds the secondary and tertiary reads without hesitation. That kind of processing doesn't usually develop until quarterbacks have several seasons of NFL experience under their belts. Comparative analysis against Dillon Gabriel reveals meaningful differences in the statistical profiles. Gabriel has posted solid numbers in many categories. His accuracy rates fall within acceptable ranges. His decision-making grades are respectable. But Sanders holds advantages in nearly every key metric. When front offices compare quarterbacks statistically, even small edges add up to meaningful separation over time. The red zone efficiency numbers deserve particular attention. Scoring touchdowns instead of field goals often determines close games. Sanders has shown an ability to execute in condensed areas where spacing tightens dramatically. His accuracy inside the 20-yard line remains consistent with his overall numbers. Some quarterbacks see their effectiveness diminish as the field shrinks. Sanders maintains his level regardless of field position. Third down conversion rates round out the statistical picture favorably for Sanders. Sustaining drives requires making plays when the chains must move. Sanders has performed well in these clutch situations during camp and preseason action. He's shown the ability to find open receivers against defenses that no passing is likely. He's extended plays when necessary to create additional time for routes to develop. The aggregate statistical profile paints a clear picture. Sanders isn't just showing flashes of potential. He's demonstrating sustained excellence across the metrics that matter most for NFL quarterbacks. The numbers suggest his strong performances aren't random variance or lucky outcomes. They reflect genuine skill development that should translate to regular season success. Statistical analysis in the NFL always comes with caveats. Sample sizes during training camp and preseason remain limited. Competition level varies from practice to game situations. Some players perform better in low-stakes environments than when real consequences attach to outcomes. All of these concerns apply to Sanders' numbers as they would to any young quarterback. However, the consistency of his statistical excellence across different situations mitigates many of those concerns. He hasn't just excelled in one area while struggling in others. He's posted strong numbers across the board in ways that suggest comprehensive development rather than isolated skill. That pattern predicts future success more reliably than excellence in any single category. When scouts and analysts project quarterback careers, they look for exactly the statistical foundation Sanders has built: high accuracy, sound decision-making, poise under pressure, efficient timing, complete progression reading, strong red zone performance, clutch third down execution. Sanders checks every box on the list. The numbers don't guarantee success, but they provide every reason for optimism. Statistics capture one dimension of quarterback performance. The intangible qualities that separate good quarterbacks from great ones exist in spaces that numbers can't fully measure. Shedeur Sanders has demonstrated intangibles throughout his time in Cleveland that have generated significant buzz both inside and outside the organization. These soft skills might ultimately determine his ceiling more than any physical attribute or statistical achievement. Leadership manifests differently for every quarterback. Some lead through vocal intensity. Others lead through quiet example. Some demonstrate leadership through emotional connection with teammates. Others show it through relentless preparation that inspires everyone around them. Sanders appears to possess multiple forms of leadership simultaneously. He adapts his approach based on what each situation requires. In the huddle, Sanders takes command immediately. There's no hesitation in his voice when he calls plays. There's no looking around for reassurance from veteran teammates. He delivers information with clarity and authority that belies his rookie status. Teammates respond to that energy because confidence is contagious. When the quarterback believes the play is going to work, everyone else starts believing too. The communication skills Sanders displays extend beyond play calls. Between snaps, he engages with teammates in ways that build connection and trust. He acknowledges good efforts from his protection. He encourages receivers after dropped passes. He takes responsibility for miscommunications rather than pointing fingers. All of these small interactions accumulate into meaningful relationships that strengthen team chemistry. Body language tells stories that words cannot. When things go wrong on the field, some quarterbacks slump their shoulders and project frustration. That negative energy spreads through the entire offense. Sanders maintains confident posture even after interceptions or sacks. His demeanor suggests that one bad play won't define the drive. Teammates feed off that resilience because they know their quarterback won't quit on them. The preparation habits Sanders has established speak volumes about his professional approach. He arrives at the facility early enough to get extra film work before team meetings begin. He stays late enough to review practice tape and correct mistakes immediately. That dedication isn't performative for coaches or media. It reflects genuine obsession with improvement that drives elite performers in every field. Veteran players have started following Sanders' example in the quarterback room. When a rookie sets the standard for preparation, it challenges everyone else to elevate their approach. That cultural impact extends beyond individual development. It shapes how the entire position group approaches their craft. Leaders change cultures, and Sanders is changing the culture in Cleveland's quarterback room. The fan base connection represents another intangible that carries real organizational value. Sanders arrived in Cleveland with an established following that most rookies could never dream of matching. His social media presence generates constant engagement. Jersey sales have exceeded projections. Content featuring Sanders attracts viewership that amplifies the team's overall brand. In the modern NFL, marketability matters alongside performance. The organizational implications of Sanders' fan connection shouldn't be underestimated. Trading a player who generates that level of excitement would create backlash that no front office wants to manage. Keeping Sanders positions Cleveland to capitalize on his popularity for years to come. The business case for building around him extends beyond wins and losses into revenue streams and brand equity. Teammates have started gravitating toward Sanders in ways that typically don't happen with rookies. Established veterans seek him out for conversations. They include him in social activities outside the building. They treat him as a peer rather than a newcomer still proving himself. That acceptance accelerates integration and builds the foundation for long-term success together. The pressure-handling capabilities Sanders has shown deserve recognition as a distinct intangible skill. He entered Cleveland facing more external expectations than almost any rookie quarterback in recent memory. His father's fame guaranteed constant scrutiny. Critics waited eagerly for any excuse to declare him overrated. Supporters expected immediate excellence. Managing all that external noise requires mental fortitude that many young players lack. Sanders has blocked out the distractions with remarkable effectiveness. His focus remains on daily improvement and team success. He doesn't engage with criticism in ways that create unnecessary drama. He doesn't let praise inflate his ego or alter his approach. That emotional stability suggests maturity beyond his years and bodes well for handling the inevitable challenges of an NFL season. The huddle-present Sanders displays connects directly to game management capabilities that develop over time. Quarterbacks who take command early in their careers typically maintain that authority throughout their playing days. Those who defer to veterans initially often struggle to establish leadership later. Sanders has positioned himself as the alpha in his quarterback room despite being the least experienced player in it. Coaches notice everything about how their quarterbacks carry themselves. They watch interactions during water breaks. They observe body language during film sessions. They pay attention to how players respond to coaching points. Everything Sanders has shown in these subtle moments apparently reinforces the positive impressions his on-field performance has created. The intangibles package Sanders brings to Cleveland represents perhaps his greatest long-term asset. Physical tools can be matched by other quarterbacks. Statistical achievements can be replicated by players with different skill sets. But the combination of leadership, presence, composure, and preparation that Sanders displays is genuinely rare. That combination typically predicts sustained success at the NFL level more reliably than any other factor. Cleveland stands at a crossroads that will shape this franchise for years to come. The decisions made over the next few weeks regarding the quarterback position carry implications far beyond the upcoming season. Front office personnel understand the stakes. Coaches recognize the magnitude, and players throughout the roster feel the tension that accompanies transformative organizational moments. The trade deadline approaches with Dillon Gabriel's name circulating in discussions across the league. Multiple teams have expressed interest. The Raiders need quarterback depth after injuries disrupted their plans. Dallas continues searching for long-term insurance behind their starter. Detroit has shown willingness to acquire talented young quarterbacks who might develop into starters elsewhere. Any of these destinations could provide Gabriel opportunities he won't receive in Cleveland. If the Browns pull the trigger on a Gabriel trade, the message becomes unmistakable. They're committing fully to Shedeur Sanders as their quarterback of the future. That kind of organizational clarity provides benefits that extend throughout the roster. Players know the direction. Coaches can plan accordingly. The fan base can rally around a singular vision for the position. However, trading Gabriel also carries meaningful risks. Competition sharpens all players involved. Without a legitimate challenger pushing him, Sanders might not develop as quickly as he would with someone breathing down his neck. The pressure that comes from knowing your job security depends on outperforming a talented teammate drives growth. Removing that pressure could theoretically slow Sanders' development. The Browns appear willing to accept those risks based on everything we've seen. Kevin Stefanski's public commitment to Sanders suggests the coaching staff has already reached their conclusion about the quarterback room's future composition. The front office's aggressive roster moves indicate comfort with reducing depth at the position. All signs point toward Cleveland making Sanders their guy sooner rather than later. What happens if they're wrong? That question lingers over every aggressive organizational decision. If Sanders struggles significantly during the regular season, Cleveland will face intense scrutiny. Critics will question why Gabriel was traded before proving Sanders could handle the pressure. Second-guessing will become deafening. The front office will need convictions strong enough to weather considerable criticism. The physical debate surrounding Gabriel won't disappear regardless of what Cleveland decides. If he gets traded and succeeds elsewhere, questions will arise about whether the Browns overweighted height concerns. If he struggles after a trade, those who questioned his physical profile will claim validation. Either outcome will be interpreted through the lens of the size discussion that's dominated analysis of this competition. Sanders enters this pivotal period with everything pointing in his direction. The analysts support him. The coaching staff believes in him. The statistics validate his performance. The intangibles suggest long-term star potential. But none of that guarantees success when real NFL games begin. The pressure multiplies exponentially when wins and losses start accumulating. Rookies have crumbled under that weight before, despite showing every positive sign during evaluation periods. The next few preseason games provide final opportunities for either quarterback to change the narrative. Gabriel could theoretically deliver performances so impressive that Cleveland reconsiders their apparent direction. Sanders could struggle in ways that introduce doubt about his readiness. Football remains unpredictable precisely because human performance varies in ways that defy projection. Anything can happen under the lights. Cleveland's decision will reverberate throughout the NFL regardless of which direction they choose. If they trade Gabriel and build around Sanders, other teams will study their process for evaluating young quarterbacks. If they keep Gabriel and maintain competition, that decision will be analyzed just as thoroughly. Front offices around the league watch each other's moves carefully. Everyone learns from everyone else's successes and failures. The fan base remains divided despite the mounting evidence supporting Sanders. Some supporters still believe Gabriel deserves more opportunity to prove himself. Others have fully embraced Sanders as the future and want the organization to commit immediately. That split will persist until game results provide clarity that speculation cannot. Wins silence doubters faster than any argument. For Sanders personally, these next weeks represent the culmination of everything he's worked toward his entire football life. The preparation, the development, the handling of expectations, the performance under pressure. All of it has led to this moment. He stands on the threshold of becoming the unquestioned starter for an NFL franchise. That opportunity arrives for very few quarterbacks. Most never get this close. The organizational stakes extend beyond quarterback evaluation. How Cleveland handles this situation signals their broader approach to roster building. Will they make bold decisions when evidence supports aggressive action? Will they trust their evaluations even when they require difficult moves? Will they commit fully to chosen directions rather than hedging with half measures? The answers to these questions shape franchise culture for years. What happens next in Cleveland will be studied, analyzed, and debated by football observers everywhere. The quarterback position carries that level of significance in the modern NFL. It determines more outcomes than any other factor. It shapes how offenses function. It influences how defenses prepare. It affects everything about how teams compete. Getting it right changes everything. Getting it wrong creates problems that take years to fix. The future waits for no one. Cleveland must decide. And that decision, whatever it may be, will echo throughout this franchise's history long after the current participants have moved on. The quarterback battle in Cleveland has reached its decisive moment. Everything we've examined points toward a franchise prepared to make Shedeur Sanders their foundation for the future. The analysts agree. The coaching staff has shifted. The statistics support. The intangibles impress. The organizational momentum builds daily. Dillon Gabriel's uncertain situation reflects the harsh reality of NFL roster decisions. Talent alone doesn't guarantee opportunity when circumstances and competition align against you. What unfolds over the coming weeks will determine whether Cleveland's faith in Sanders proves justified or premature. The pressure will intensify. The scrutiny will multiply. Every throw will be analyzed. Every decision will be debated. That's the burden quarterbacks accept when they step into starting roles. Sanders appears ready to carry that weight. His composure under fire suggests a player built for these moments. His preparation habits indicate someone committed to continuous improvement. His leadership qualities point toward a future where teammates follow his example. The NFL waits for no one. Cleveland has positioned themselves to make a defining choice. The quarterback room will look different when the regular season begins, and the young man left standing will shoulder responsibility for everything that comes next.